It began in a place few could find on a map, a handful of windswept islands, 8,000 miles from Britain, surrounded by freezing waters and inhabited by more sheep than people. And yet, in the spring of 1982, those remote islands would become the center of the world, a forgotten colony, suddenly caught between pride, politics, and war. This is the story of how Argentina invaded the Falklands, how Britain, humiliated and unprepared, refused to give up, and how, against all odds, a country half a world away launched one of the most daring military comebacks in modern history. For decades, almost no one in Britain thought about the Falkland Islands. They were a small British territory off the coast of South America, lonely, cold, and largely forgotten. But for Argentina, they were not forgotten. To them, the islands were Las Malvinas, stolen by Britain in 1833. And for 150 years, Argentine leaders had demanded their return. By 1982, Argentina was ruled by a brutal military dictatorship led by General Leopoldo Galtieri. The country was collapsing, hyperinflation, protests, political violence. So the generals turned to a familiar playbook: nationalism. If they could reclaim the Falklands, maybe the people would forget their misery, and the junta could cling to power. On April 2nd, 1982, Argentine forces invaded. They stormed the islands with tanks, marines, and aircraft. The tiny British garrison of just 80 Royal Marines fought bravely, but they were outnumbered 10-1. Within hours, the Union Jack was lowered, and the Argentine flag rose over the capital, Port Stanley. Across Argentina, people celebrated in the streets. Las Malvinas son Argentinas. The Falklands are ours. They believed the old empire had finally been humbled. They were wrong. In London, a different fire had been lit. At 10 Downing Street, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher was facing political disaster. Her approval ratings were collapsing. The economy was in recession. Many believed she wouldn't last the year. But the invasion changed everything. When the news reached her, she said only 3 words: "This is war." The British public was outraged. Even political opponents demanded action. And suddenly, Thatcher, the Iron Lady, had her moment. She ordered the creation of a naval task force to retake the islands. A fleet of over 100 ships, including aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines, and troop transports. It was a gamble unlike anything Britain had attempted since World War II. The Falklands were 8,000 miles away, at the edge of the South Atlantic. No bases nearby, no local support. It would take 3 weeks just to get there. The world didn't think they could do it. Even some in her cabinet begged her to negotiate. But Thatcher refused. "The Falklands are British," she said, "and they always will be." On April 5th, the British fleet set sail from Portsmouth. Thousands lined the docks, waving flags, singing "Rule Britannia" through tears. Among the ships were the carriers HMS Hermes and HMS Invincible, carrying Sea Harrier jump jets, small, vertical takeoff fighters that would become legends. But everyone knew the risks. Britain hadn't fought a real war in decades. Argentina's air force was larger and closer. Their missiles, French-made Exocets, were deadly. The first blood came quickly. On May 4th, a single Argentine jet launched an Exocet missile at the destroyer HMS Sheffield. It hit amidships, slicing through the hull and igniting fuel lines. Within minutes, the ship was burning from bow to stern. 20 men died. The image of the sinking Sheffield shocked Britain. It was a harsh reminder. This was no colonial police action. It was war, modern, deadly, and unforgiving. For the next several weeks, The South Atlantic became a deadly chessboard of missiles, submarines, and air raids. The British struck first. The nuclear submarine HMS Conqueror torpedoed the Argentine cruiser General Belgrano, killing over 320 sailors, nearly half the war's total deaths in one blow. It was controversial, but it changed everything. The Argentine Navy retreated to its ports and never sailed again. From then on, the air war began. Argentine Skyhawks and Mirages screamed in low over the water, dropping bombs on British ships at mast height. The British fired back with sea darts and anti-aircraft guns, but losses mounted. HMS Ardent, Antelope, and Coventry were sunk. Dozens of men lost. In the freezing sea, survivors clung to life rafts, singing to keep warm as the waves swallowed the wreckage. By late May, the task force was in range. It was time to take the islands back. On May 21st, British troops landed at San Carlos Bay, a narrow inlet soon nicknamed Bomb Alley. Argentine pilots attacked relentlessly, but the British managed to unload men, vehicles, and supplies. The land campaign had begun. Royal Marines and paratroopers pushed east across the mountains in freezing rain, mud, and fog. Helicopters ferried troops through gale-force winds. Every night, they dug foxholes in frozen ground, waiting for the next air raid. At Goose Green, 600 British paratroopers faced 1,200 Argentine defenders. The battle raged for 2 days. When it ended, the British had won, but at the cost of 17 dead, including their beloved commander, Lieutenant Colonel H. Jones, killed leading from the front. He would receive the Victoria Cross posthumously. As June began, British forces closed in on Port Stanley, the island capital, the final objective. They attacked under cover of darkness, moving silently over the hills. Mount Harriet, Two Sisters, Tumbledown, and Wireless Ridge. The fighting was fierce. Bayonets, grenades, hand-to-hand combat. Argentine troops fought hard, but many were young conscripts, cold and terrified. By dawn, on June 14th, white flags appeared over Stanley. The Argentine commander surrendered. The war was over. In just 74 days, Britain had retaken the Falklands. 255 British servicemen were dead. 649 Argentines had been killed, and the South Atlantic fell silent again. When the news reached London, crowds poured into the streets, church bells rang. Margaret Thatcher addressed Parliament. "We have ceased to be a nation in retreat. Britain is great again." Her approval ratings soared. The victory transformed her from an unpopular leader into a national icon, the Iron Lady reborn. But in Buenos Aires, the mood was very different. The defeat shattered Argentina's military regime. Within a year, the generals were gone, and democracy returned to the country. 2 nations, 2 outcomes, 1 reborn, 1 broken. The Falklands War was short, just 10 weeks, but its lessons echoed far longer. It proved that even in the age of missiles and politics, willpower still mattered. Britain had crossed an ocean to defend a few thousand people and won against all expectations. But the cost was high. Ships sunk, lives lost, scars carried for decades. And for the soldiers who fought, the freezing winds of the South Atlantic would never fade. The invasion Britain never expected had become the comeback no one believed. Before we end, here are a few fascinating facts you might not know about the Falklands War. The war was fought 8,000 miles from Britain, making it one of the most logistically difficult operations in modern military history. The British task force included 2 aircraft carriers and over 40 warships, supported by merchant ships hastily converted into troop transports. Sea Harrier pilots achieved an astonishing kill ratio: 23 Argentine aircraft destroyed, with no air-to-air losses. The war lasted just 74 days, from April 2nd to June 14th, 1982. The youngest British soldier killed was only 17 years old. Despite the bitter fighting, both sides respected each other's bravery. Argentine officers later praised British discipline and courage, while British veterans often spoke of the Argentines' determination in impossible conditions. And finally, the Falkland Islands remain under British control today, their population overwhelmingly choosing to stay British in every referendum since. This was the invasion Britain never expected, and the comeback no one believed. A story of pride, courage, and the power of determination, even at the end of the world.